Hey you guys, thanks so much for tuning in. If you hear something knocking in the background, I'm trying to do laundry and make videos at the same time, so I apologize in advance. But there's something I want to talk to you guys about really quickly. And the idea is, or the topic is, explanations versus excuses. And it's something I've talked to people about individually, just with friends or whatever, and I thought it would be a really cool topic for a video. And so I'll start here. How often have you heard or have you given the explanation that you're tired, you're busy, you didn't have time, you couldn't get to it? On a larger scale or kind of something more serious, I grew up in a certain environment. I had these things happen to me when it comes to relationships. I've got commitment issues, I've got trust issues, I've been hurt before, or whatever it might be. Have you found yourself or other people in your life giving you those excuses or giving you those explanations for why they are or are not doing something? And I found that the real issue with that is the fact that when we say those things, we are not holding ourselves to the highest possible standard or the highest potential that we have. The idea is, if you want to reach success, there's no possible way that you can give yourself an out for not being the best you, or not doing the best you can at all times. And I know you're thinking, well, that's easier said than done. Yes, it is. But the fact is, if you're trying to, every day you get 24 hours for you to be the best you that you can be, the time that you spend giving those excuses is time you're taking away from you being the best you. And I'll give you a personal example, or I'll give you two personal examples. One, my body used to be really amazing. Like it was hot. But what happened is that I changed job roles and I found myself working a lot more hours, spending a lot more time at my desk. And by the time I would get out of the office, it's late and I'm still hungry because I hadn't eaten all day because I was working so much. And so when I got out of the office, I would run by some place that was probably unhealthy, something fast food related, and I would eat and I would pass out and I would start over again the next day. And I did that for a while and I saw the weight starting to come back on. And I would feel like, man, I really wish I could lose weight, but with work being so busy, I guess I just can't. And I just don't have the time to work out. I don't have the time to eat healthy. And I kept telling myself that, and then the weight came on, and then my clothes didn't fit, and then I found myself sitting there like, man, I can't wear anything in my closet. And I had to ask myself, is it really that I can't work out, or is it just that I'm not making the time to do that? If I really want to look good, or if I really want to feel healthy, then I've got to do something different. And what I started to do, I'm like, okay, if exercise is not something that I can do right now, or if I feel I can't do right now, then I'll change my diet. And I changed my diet to something awesome. I'll have to tell you guys about it. It's an amazing diet. But I changed my diet, and and then I started to see weight come off. And then I started to exercise, and I'm seeing more weight come off. And my job hasn't changed. I have not gotten a different job role. My hours have not decreased significantly. But what I decided was that I have time for what I make time for. I know we've all heard that before, but no truer words have been spoken. You have time for what you make time for. And if you really want to do something, you will make the time to do it. You have to hold yourself to that standard. And the second example I'll give you guys is something happened to me that was traumatic in college, and I thought that it would impact how I would ever be able to be in relationships with other people and how I'd be able to see the world around me. But I had to deal with those issues and say, I don't want to live in that fear. I don't want to give myself that out or that cop out for me not living my best life, that I'm still living stuck in the past. And so I had to deal with those issues, and then I found myself on a better path. And most people who would have gone through that, may wonder, well, how are you able to do that? And the idea is that you have to want better for yourself. If you see where you're at, you have to want better than where you're at. And that applies to all of life. Even if you grow up in a certain environment, that's one of the things that we talk about, is that people who grow up in poverty, or people who grow up, in this situation or that situation, that they can't achieve certain things. The fact is, you can achieve whatever it is that you want to if you're given the right access, and you have to take advantage of that. But don't give yourself that out of this is where I came from, so I can't get here. No, you hold yourself to a higher standard. You tell yourself that this is something I want to do and I can go and get it. There's nothing standing in your way except you. When you look at the people that are successful, when we think about, people that we look up to, if you want to think about whether it's music and you think about people like Jay-Z and Dr. Dre and all these folks who have, or Diddy, people who have parlayed their careers into these massive empires. Or you think about people who are tech moguls, if you think about Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or any of these people that you find, Oprah, people that you find to be successful, do you really think that they would get to where they are if they gave themselves excuses, as to why they can't achieve something? And not everybody that you look at that's successful came from the best environment. These people grew up in bad environments. They grew up with whether it's poverty or drugs or abuse or whatever it might be. There are people who have grown up with tough environments, and even if it wasn't even from their growing up, they've all encountered something. We've all got a story to tell. But the question is, do we want our past to write our future? And I think that it's important that we hold ourselves to the standard of, I want better, I'm going to do better regardless of what has happened to me. And then, as I said, you have time for what you make time for. If you want to start a business, whether or not you're busy at your day job, you can still make time. You can still carve out a half an hour to an hour each day to say, I'm going to start working on my dream, because that's your dream. If you want it, you got to go get it. No one's going to hand it to you. And you don't want to look back 10 years later, when you could have started and think about, man, where did all the time go? I could have had this happen, but I kept telling myself that, I didn't have the time. And sooner rather than later, you'll probably be at a point in your life where you really won't have the time to do those things. And I mentioned relationships a little bit ago, talking about when people say, well, I've got trust issues, I've got, commitment issues, I've got whatever all these issues are, when people come up with why they can't be the best person in a relationship. And I know that sometimes we especially for women, we'll hear guys tell us these things, and not to say that guys, you guys don't hear it. I'm sure that there'll be people who can comment and say that as a guy, I've heard these things too. But as a woman, I can speak to the fact that I've heard those excuses, however many times, I can barely count. And the fact is, if somebody really does want to be with you, then they have to be willing, or he has to be willing to put whatever it is aside. And yes, it's easier said than done, but when you really care, you're willing to at least try. You don't just say something and that's the end of it. You have to be willing to say, I'm going to do different. If I love, if someone says that they love Julia and they've had some things in the past, they have to be willing to move past it. Because I wasn't in the past with you. I don't know what happened to you. So why am I getting penalized for something that happened to you way back when? If you're not ready to move past those things, then take the time to get yourself together. Don't be in a relationship. If you need therapy, if you need time to just be by yourself, whatever it might be, but take time to deal with your own baggage and then try to be with someone. But don't bring your baggage in and use it as an excuse for why you're not treating somebody the right way. And that goes to all of these things. If you've got things that you really need to deal with before you can move forward, deal with them. But don't allow the excuses to stop you from being the best you. And that's really what I wanted to just talk about. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Perhaps some of you are saying, well, Julia, you're not really living in the real world. That kind of stuff doesn't happen. I'd love to hear from you. But I do believe that we each hold the potential to be amazing and absolutely great. There's no one out there that's successful, that's a billionaire, that has all this wealth, has anything on you specifically. They have nothing on you. The only thing that's standing in your way of your greatness is you and what you're telling yourself you can and can't do. Stop selling yourself short, push yourself to the absolute limit, hold yourself to a higher standard, and see what comes out on the other side. But I'd love to hear from you guys. Leave some comments. And until then, I'll talk to you guys.